person driven by truth. Broadcasting live from beautiful British Columbia, it's Roadkill Radio. And now, here are your hosts, Terry Simpson and Terry O'Neill.
We'll be talking with, sitting to my left, on your right, as I'm waiting patiently, Derek Hoare. Derek, thank you for being here tonight. Welcome to Roadkill Radio. Headline in the Abbotsford News is, Abbotsford dad devastated that autistic daughter is removed from home. Derek, what happened?
Well, really, I mean, the story obviously goes all the way back to when she's autistic, when she was diagnosed, or even before. But
now you have 3 children.
Correct.
And how many of them have autism?
My youngest 2 have autism, my 9 and my 10-year-old little boy, and then I have an 11-year-old who's quote-unquote normal.
And you're a single father at this
Correct.
stage? Okay.
Yeah, for 3 years now.
Okay, so you have custody of 3 children, and you're devastated because one of those children has now been removed from the home.
Correct.
What's the story with that? How did that come about?
She escaped from the yard. She's not known as a wanderer. She wandered a bit in 2007 and 2008. Other than that, the rest of her life, she's been pretty well a homebody. And on Sunday, the 12th, I believe, she jumped the fence from her tree house, and she took off. Now, I went out less than a minute later to look for her, but I assumed she had gone north, and that's sort of the direction I headed. First, I searched the house and the yard, of course. She did go south, and she, I guess, went into a neighbor's house through a screen and watched some TV and listened to music and had a bath, and then Goldilocks to their house, and then she went next door to where they had one of those plastic wading pools and played in that and on the trampoline. I had called the police after about 20 minutes because I ran down the street and back.
Now, let me stop you there. Give us a little glimpse into what a day in the life of Derek Hoare is like with having 3 children, 2 that are very special needs.
Okay, well, I mean, because my kids are special needs, and I mean, they make quite a bit of mess, so from about 9 o'clock at night to midnight or so, I clean around the house, and then I stay up and do research or reading until about 3 in the morning. I get up at 6 a.m., and check out the stock markets, and I have to get the kids up at about 7:30 or 8. My daughter...
Now, all 3 in school?
No, my eldest son, Wyatt, is homeschooled.
Okay.
Now, so I get the kids up to get ready. They're not allowed... Ian's not allowed on the bus anymore because of her volatile behavior.
Okay, let's talk about that, because I want our audience, and we won't spend too much time, but just to understand the special needs of these children. When you say she wasn't a wanderer, there's different symptoms that are attributed to autism. There's a whole spectrum.
Mine is probably almost as extremely autistic as you can get outside of the communication. Mine's verbal skills are very, I wouldn't say good, because you can't converse with her. She can talk to you and you can talk to her, but you can't talk with her. And her spelling and all of that, her academia is good, but it's Ian's behavior and emotional state is always, since she was a little infant, been very, very volatile and aggressive and angry and tantruming and feces smearing, and I mean, you hear it in the recording, and things like this, lashing out. Now, it's taken me years to get her out of her shell, so at home now she's a happy girl and there's no tantruming or any of that anymore. It's now seen almost exclusively, it is seen exclusively outside of the home, generally in the school environment. So
in your home now, this is her world of peace and contentment.
Right.
Okay. Now, what about Lyric, your son?
He's happy-go-lucky. He's nonverbal, so he's, I guess technically easier to deal with, but almost in the same regard, you have to make yourself pay attention to him because he doesn't demand a lot of attention, whereas Ian is very much in your face.
Now, in your home, I understand, and I've talked to your ex-wife, and I'm hoping that we will add her to this conversation because she's very supportive of you as the children's primary caregiver and full-time parent. But one of the things that she gave me a glimpse into is the special considerations you have to give to your home. You have to have locks on the doors.
There's locks on every door, on every window. I've had to change the locks on the windows because they solved those.
Okay, now when you say they solved those, what kind of challenges do you have with they?
Right.
Those children of yours.
The window locks used to have a tab that you could squeeze tightly with your hands. And Lyric figured out that you could open these with pliers, so then I had to hide all the pliers. And then he figured out you could just use a fork and jam it in there and twist it. So I had to switch to Allen key window locks, so now he can't open those. 2 of my 3 doors to leave my house are nailed shut. The front door has a lock on the inside. You need a key to get out. In the past, I've had to reverse doorknobs so that basically the burglar can walk in, but you're locked in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these are the, everything has to get put up, no pictures on the walls.
And why is that? Because children who have autism don't retain or understand danger. What is the special aspect of...
I mean, they accrue knowledge like anyone else does because they're living life. So they're gaining experience and they're gaining abilities and they're gaining knowledge, but they're retaining that naivety that a 3 or 4-year-old would have where they don't understand the dangers that are in the world, right? So very much, and this goes into adulthood, very much they do have to be protected, right? And we keep them safe, and we try to predict as best we can as parents of autistic kids.
Now, what do you mean by we?
Well, because, there's a lot, it's like the families of autistic kids communicate with one another.
I see, okay.
We talk to each other and we share ideas of how we
There
we
is
do
a good
this.
support system within the autistic community.
Yeah, there's a lot of ideas out there on how we do this, and a lot of, it's like you know what's coming because you've talked to people that are a little further down the road with you, right?
Yeah.
So...
Now, when Ayn escaped, and we'll use the word escape because your home sounds like a fortress, you've taken extraordinary consideration and measures to keep your children safe. And I understand even the outside area of your home has quite a high fence around it.
Well, it does, but I'm not... I knew when I moved into that house that my daughter is so athletic that this girl could clear a 6-foot fence. I knew this, right? I've known that I have to keep a very close eye on her. Now, we've been there since August. Ayn's played outside so many times, and she's never escaped before. This all happened. She escaped 3 times in a 5-day period. The first time she didn't leave the field that's on the other side of the fence. She just jumped over and was in that field, and a nice neighbor came and said, your daughter's in the field next door. I gave her my phone number, and in case this happened again, she could give me a call. And then came the day that Ayn actually escaped, and Goldie locks the house and played in the pool. That was a big day. I had to call the police, and they launched a big search and rescue operation with helicopters, a fixed-wing aircraft from the United States. It was a big search, and they organized it very, very well. But, of course, it took time to implement because they didn't know where she had gone, and the tracking dog couldn't find her scent. So they did this, what's called a grid point search, where they block everything off, everybody gets suited up. So Ayn did have 4 hours to play freely, and this is how long it took them to find him. And the person in the house happened to be napping at the time. They woke up to find my naked girl playing in their pool.
Okay.
Well, it would be almost a cute story, except for the tragic twist that has happened. I mean, this was a good story. I am the mother of 4 children. I know how fast children can disappear, whether you're in a mall, a grocery store, or in your home and in the yard. That just happens. My younger sister, I mean, one of the best stories of our family was how she took off for a 3-mile walk with our Great Dane, who was twice the size of her when she was about 3 years old. These things happen in the course of a normal family situation.
Right, and any family. It certainly happened to my family as well.
Yeah.
I might even done it myself when I was a kid.
Yeah.
That's right.
Not you, Terry.
So, yes, there's stories. So this happened, a happy resolution,
ending.
but the ministry gets involved that day or later?
No, Thursday. That happened on a Sunday. So she came out on Thursday. The kids were off at school.
She is a social worker?
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, it was 2 of them, but I had met the social worker before, and this man, I believe, just accompanied her as sort of, to come in a pair, I guess.
Now, let's stop there because, again, for all of our audience's sake, with 2 autistic children, you have a lot of support systems that are available. British Columbia is very good about supporting typically parents.
No.
You're shaking your head no.
No.
So that's a whole other show, the challenges that are involved with parental support of autism.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Okay. But still, in the past, the ministry has been there. There's caseworkers. There is some involvement of the government already in your life.
Right. No,
Not
for
for protection issues, but for support issues, right?
The MCFD now oversees all the autism programming. So
the Ministry of Children and Family Development.
Right.
Okay.
And so they, my meetings are forwarded to them. We have care team meetings where speech and language pathologist comes, or we'll get OT reports and child psychologists, and my family outreach worker comes, and the principal's there, and input from the TAs and myself, and we all sit down and try to figure out what we're going to do because she's never been suited to the education system. Every experience she's had in school has generally gone poorly. She did break out of her shell a bit at her last school, but then we moved and came here.
Right. Now, you're on social assistance as well?
Correct, yeah.
So there's another level of involvement between you and the province there as well, is there?
Technically, yeah.
Okay.
Now, you are the full-time caregiver for these kids. I mean, there is no way even a two-parent family could, I think, financially deal with what the challenges are when you have two autistic children.
Well, I have to I budget it. I have to find a way. Certainly it takes every penny pretty well every month, right? But I budget it. But I am full-time. I mean, I get called to the school quite regularly. And when the school needs to calm her down, they call me in or they send her home to me, right? And she has 2 full-time TAs.
Really?
And they can't, they don't, they're not equipped and trained to deal with a daughter of my behaviors. And in the home, I have, and professionals can, but it's just not.
The school environment is not conducive to what her needs are. How about Lyric, just out of curiosity?
Lyric does well in the school. I mean, but he's happy-go-lucky.
2 very different personality types.
Correct,
then. Yeah. Okay, so Sunday comes, big happy reunion,
right.
Daughter found.
Throws her arms around me, right.
Okay. 4 days later, a social worker comes knocking on your door.
That's right. They came to my door and came in and they asked me about what happened on Sunday. I told them, and they asked me what I was going to do about it, and I told them. I said, obviously, Ayn, is not allowed to go outside at all without me there anymore. Now, especially now that she's found a pool and a trampoline, she's got somewhere to go, right? And which is unfortunate because Lyric used to love to play up on the balcony, and he'd throw strips of toilet paper, sort of tear them up and flutter them off into the wind. And he's not going to be allowed out there if she's not, because he'll just let her out from outside. So, and I can't lock him out and lock her in. So I told her that's how it was going to have to be from there on. And then they basically said, well, that's what we wanted to talk to you about, and we have a voluntary special needs agreement for you. And I asked them,
we have a voluntary special needs agreement.
Correct, yeah.
So one would think that if it's voluntary, an agreement of some sort, you could say, no, I don't want to sign that or something. So
correct.
What happened?
Well, the
what did this agreement
to be
ask
honest,
for?
I never read the voluntary agreement, because as they began to tell me about the voluntary agreement, they said the first thing was Ayn would be removed from the home and placed into government care. And I said no. And they're like, well, you want to hear the rest of it? And I'm like, no, there's no reason to. There's no reason my daughter should be removed from the home. And he basically kept pushing me to
the male social worker
to hear what was in this. And I, at this point in time...
Now, let's just stop there, because I have knowledge that there had been a previous incident where there was an issue of child protection concern raised. Was that in the voluntary? Was that talked about or mentioned?
In that agreement?
Yeah.
No, they didn't mention that.
Okay. But there had been a record
Several.
of service. Okay. Now let's talk about the one where the social workers were involved in a previous case involving a 911 call.